Hey you all, welcome back, and today we're talking about American imperialism. So I'm pretty sure that most Americans agree that America is somewhat of an empire. We have set the standards for the world, and after World War II we emerged as this massive superpower that pretty much everyone kinda has to obey, for better or worse. I myself did not realize just how much of an empire we were. I recently read a book called How to Hide an Empire, and in this book it discusses our colonies and commonwealths that America has had, one of them being Puerto Rico, and it is still an American commonwealth. This is actually America's last full-on colony, and to this day it is still a colony, or what's now called a commonwealth, but they have reduced rights, they can't vote, and they have to adhere to all the laws that the mainland US passes. So I want to start with focusing on Puerto Rico because it is close to home and it is still an American commonwealth to this day. We have to go back to the Spanish-American War. In this war, Spain is starting to lose its power. It's becoming a falling empire, and during this time, America liberates Puerto Rico, and actually also liberates the Philippines. But we liberate Puerto Rico, right? And we go in and we're like, hey, we're here to liberate you. Obviously, we've always used that line, and it never means liberation. We came in and we set up our own government. We devalued their money and bought up 60% of their land and turned it into sugar plantations. Banks came in and built railways that were completely owned by the banks, and America screwed over the Puerto Rican people. It instituted governors and officials that did not speak Spanish, who did not know the people, and just came in to rule over them. One of these people that came in, who was really a horrendous person, was a doctor. This doctor's name was Cornelius Rhodes. Now, Cornelius Rhodes, from a certain view of history, may be seen as someone who pioneered cancer research, because he did. He actually got on Time magazine. But there's another side to this man that is very, very evil. Cornelius Rhodes hated Puerto Ricans. He despised them. And there's a letter that went around his hospital that got out and kind of leaked about what he did to Puerto Ricans. And it's really, really horrible. He said that he, I think, killed at least 3 of them and implanted cancer in 8 of his Puerto Rican patients, hoping that they would die. And in this letter, he says Puerto Ricans are the most vile and horrible people, and he wishes to exterminate them. Mind you, this is a guy that there is a scholarship named after. There's a whole thing with Rhodes Scholars and all of that. This guy, still has a positive image on the mainland, but did horrible things in Puerto Rico. And this was just a part of it. A lot of people who ruled over the Puerto Ricans that were in government hated the Puerto Rican people. They loved the land, they loved all the money they were making from it, but they came in and they hated the people. All this abuse from America would end up leading to a revolution in the future. This revolution would be led by Pedro Albizu Campos. So Pedro went to school in America at Harvard, and then he came back and he saw what America was doing to his homeland. And essentially, he starts a nationalist party. He starts to rebel against the powers that be. And violence ensues, fighting happens, and a lot of people end up getting hurt. I think there was this one riot that happened where the police just opened fire on a bunch of civilians, which is no surprise. This is something that still happens today in America. Even during peaceful protests, police often get violent first. And, well, in Puerto Rico, they got really violent. So violence is heightening, and the revolution reaches a fever pitch. And at this fever pitch, America ends up bombing its own people, the Puerto Rican people. And obviously, Puerto Rico is still an American commonwealth to this day. The revolution was lost, and many people talked about it like it was a David versus Goliath situation. Obviously, Goliath being the United States. Now, Puerto Rico benefits hugely from the American economy, but is still a commonwealth that has no right to vote on what laws we pass here on the mainland. They still have limited freedoms, even though they are part of the United States. In fact, many Puerto Ricans can freely move between the US and Puerto Rico, and that's why you saw a ton of immigration to New York. But America has never really gave them full statehood or independence, and that's kind of something that is argued about now, is should Puerto Rico get its independence or become a state. The horrible thing about imperialism, whether it's American or not, is a want for people's resources but then disregarding the people. America absolutely was horrible to the Puerto Rican people. Yet, It benefited from their labor, their culture, and everything that Puerto Rico has added to America to this day. And still, Puerto Rico is a commonwealth. So, Puerto Rico is something that is very fresh. It is something that still is an American colony. Now, we had other colonies, the Philippines being one of them. And I did not know about the Philippines and Puerto Rico being American colonies until I read this book. So we had the Philippines for quite a while, and they did end up gaining their independence, but we're like, hey, you get your independence, but we want to lease to some of the land for military bases. And America didn't just do this with its former colonies, it's done it with its allies and many other people. We actually have military bases all over the world. But you notice that there's no military bases of other countries in America. How many military bases does America have in other countries?
According to Politico, despite recently closing hundreds of bases in Iraq and Afghanistan, the United States still maintains nearly 800 military bases in more than 70 countries and territories abroad, from giant Little Americas to small radar facilities.
So I just looked up the number of bases that America has in other countries. So we have bases in over 70 countries, and that number is 800 bases. So 800 bases in 70 countries. That's insane. I thought the number was much lower because I remembered the 70 countries, so I was like, oh, we have 70 bases. No, we have 800 bases. So America, after World War II, released a lot of its colonies, gave people back their independence, and gave back the land they had conquered in World War II. And you might look at this as, oh, well, that's really good. America got away from being an empire, and it is a good thing, but it wasn't completely out of altruism or being a good, power or political power. In fact, America saw that technologically everything was advancing and that they didn't need colonies anymore. In fact, colonies and imperialism isn't that great. They're like, hey, conquering a people and then forcing them into our way of life doesn't really work. So let's instead get a lease to an island in their land or a patch of their land and build our military bases on it. And because we were the most powerful nation at the end of World War II, and arguably are still the most powerful nation, everyone kind of had to do what we wanted. So this is exactly what happened in Japan. After we had bombed Japan and then came in to help rebuild everything that we had done, which was absolutely the right thing to do, we were like, hey, let's build a military base on Okinawa, and I think we also have one on mainland Japan as well. So we came in, we helped the people we actually ended up hurting, but there was also something in it for us. And we did this with every country. Now, some of the military bases we have in these other countries are so big that they affect local economies, either negatively or positively. Some of these military bases literally help other towns' economies thrive. So it's insane. And some of these military bases are as small as just a radar station, but we have them everywhere. So after World War II, we get away from being an empire. But actually what's crazy, and I never knew this, is during the end of the war and everything with that, there's still imperialists in the American government who were like, hey, we should make Japan a state, which is crazy. I'm like, oh my god, that would just be insane. But after World War II, we actually ended up making Hawaii and Alaska a state, making the 50 states. Because before World War II, Hawaii and Alaska were still just American territories, much like Puerto Rico was. But after the war, Hawaii and Alaska became states. But the Philippines did not. We actually gave them their independence. The president at that time, which was FDR, he actually omitted the Philippines from the speech when Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, because the day before, Japan attacked the Philippines. And there was a speech that he had written where he was going to mention that. But so many Americans of that time didn't even know that the Philippines was an American colony, much like myself. And in fact, when soldiers went to the Philippines to fight the Japanese, they didn't even know they were fighting for an American colony, which is insane. And the battle that ensued when America came to liberate the Philippines from Japan was horrible. So many Filipinos had died between the crossfire of Japan and America that it was just an absolute massacre. And to this day, there are some issues that the Philippines have with America. We have massive military bases on their land, and while they do benefit from our military bases boosting up their economy, many of them also think it makes them a target to other powers in the world, like China, and it absolutely does. So America, gets away from being an empire in name. But when we look at it today, it still absolutely is. With our 800 bases across the entire world, and no other country having military bases in our land, we are at a huge strategic advantage. Now, this does give us a sense of safety as a nation, but if America was to ever go down a path of imperialism again, or becoming a very far-right leaning power like Germany was in 1942, well, we would be in a very bad place. See, America has set up the infrastructure, because it still is an empire, to impose its will upon anyone else it sees fit. And that's scary if our government becomes more corrupt than it already is. If our leaders want to do bad things, it's very easy for America to make those bad things happen. Now, while I don't think the entire military would go along with a huge regime change like what happened in Nazi Germany still happened. People were brainwashed. Propaganda worked. And fascism took hold in that country, and it wreaked havoc on the world, and millions of Jewish people died at the hands of an ethnic cleanser named Hitler. Now, America is not Germany in 1942. We are currently a very divided nation. There are people on the far right who have some very scary ideologies and who want to gain power. And if people were propagandized and brainwashed enough, then America would be a force to be reckoned with in the worst way possible. And that's my fear of being as powerful as America is. It has the chance to wreak havoc on the world, and it already does. Anytime another government has tried to change up its system of doing things, let's say Chile, for example, trying to become a more socialist government with a free and fair election, mind you. I've mentioned this before, but Chile, elected a president named Allende, and guess what? He was a socialist. He had more socialist ideas. And America, instead of staying out of Chile's business, ended up backing a dictator named Pinochet, who ended up killing Allende and plunged Chile into a bunch of turmoil and killed their economy because they shocked it into capitalism and all those things. Just America loves to stick its hands in other people's business. And it has the ability to do because of its huge ass military. And my biggest fear is that if America takes a path to the dark side, essentially, becomes the Galactic Empire instead of the Galactic Republic in Star Wars, well, then we are screwed. And when I mean we, I mean the whole world. Because America has set itself up as the most powerful nation. So, what can we do? Well, we can vote in officials who are anti-imperialists. We ourselves can get into positions and influence our local government and national government and international government to be anti-imperialist. We have the power, for there are many, many of us, and there are only a few people in power. It is us, the citizens of the world, who have the power, and we just have to choose to go along with what they want us to go along with or not. I say this, better yourselves as best as you can, become as successful and powerful as you can so that you can influence change. Do everything in your power to love those around you, because we can go into a future where mutual aid and collaboration are what ties humanity together. We no longer need to be survival of the fittest, where competition is everything. We no longer need to fear each other as we did way back in the tribal days because we just didn't know what language another tribe spoke. Nowadays, we have such an access to knowledge and power that we can understand everything about a culture and a people that we don't understand at first glance. Because you have books, you have translators, and you have everything at your hands to try to have empathy and understanding for someone else. Every time I have read a book about another culture, or I have read books about history and imperialism, it has opened my eyes to be more empathetic to the people who are hurt. Every time I get to enjoy someone else's culture, I am thankful for it. Yet, there are still people out there who are racist, who will use religion to start wars or to kill each other because that's what they believe. Yet we live in an age where you can literally learn everything you need to know about what you fear. And you should not fear your fellow human beings. It is such a lie that we fear each other. And it is a lie sold to us by the powers that be. Because they want us divided. Because if we are divided, they can conquer us. So, I say this: the future we need as a humanity is one of one world and one people. Because we are all the same. We bleed the same blood, and while our cultures might be different, this does not mean we cannot get along and enjoy each other as human beings and as cultures. And we can also continually learn from each other. There is no excuse in my mind anymore for us to be racist and bigoted, or to use our religion to kill or hurt others, because we can learn so much and gain so much empathy about each other. And if you hold a view that is anti-human, where you believe you are better than everyone else, like the Nazis did in Germany, well then you, my person, are the problem. You are what's holding society back. And sadly, there are still countries out there who think that they can do this. And not countries as in the people, but more as in the governments. They think that they are better. They think they have rights to other people's lands when they don't. And we must stand against imperialism. We must stand against the powers that be and hold them accountable. It is our duty and is what we must do. I appreciate you all, and I love you so much. Peace.